Hello, everyone. This episode of Mining for Meaning is going to be a bit of a long one because we are going to be covering a book written for Crystal Phoenix Hobbies called The River, the Rock, the Flame, the Tree, and the Wind, a self-diagnosed personality. It is a little bit longer, but the first thing to get out of the way is that this book is not written by anyone with a degree or background in psychology or any other medical field. The information contained herein is based solely on personal observations and do not represent the findings of medical professionals. While we believe that the information contained in this book can be beneficial to anyone who reads it, this book is intended for entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as a medical diagnosis. Introduction. Like most self-help books, this one began with a simple conversation between myself and one of my co-workers. However, despite being billed as a self-diagnosed personality, this book began as a question about the validity of astrology. Traditionally, astrology, be it the month-to-month variety found in Western astrology and Celtic astrology, or the year-to-year type that is often associated with Chinese astrology, a person's personality is, in theory, determined entirely by when they were born. I, for instance, a June baby from 1983, have an overarching sign of Gemini according to Western astrology, and was born in the year of the pig according to Chinese astrology. Since I mentioned it earlier, I am also considered a Wren in Celtic astrology. Those divining factors are further broken down by the claims that I was born under an Aquarius moon sign in Western astrology and during a water year in Chinese astrology. With only these simple pieces of information, entire books have been written about who I am going to be, and why I am that way. In this same vein, horoscopes, predictions of how my day, week, month, or year are going to turn out, continually bombard me with predestined, vaguely written editorial snippets. Each of these horoscopes, naturally, are based upon my individual personality type as determined by my sign. And just as I am able to say I am a Gemini or a pig, I feel quite certain that any one of you reading this can, without a moment's hesitation, answer the question, what's your sign? While some people will laugh and scoff over the idea that their date of birth has anything to do with who they are, and while others will believe it down to the very pits of their souls, the simple truth is, almost everyone knows the answer to that question. Astrology, for better or worse, has become so fully ingrained in our society that no matter what we believe about the matter, we all know where we fall in the zodiac. I will grant, however, that not everyone knows their Chinese sign, or that not everyone knows their Western sign, and certainly few know their Celtic sign, but we all know at least one of them. Ultimately, however, no matter where you live or what astrology you follow or don't, the same truth appears every time. When you are born determines who you are. Your sun sign, your moon sign, your year sign, or your element. Each is tied to a specific personality trait that reads like a history book. You will be this because of that, in which you will become this because of that. But personally, even though I, like all of you, know what my sign is, I always believed that who you were depended less on when you were born and had far more to do with, well, who you are. In general, people don't change. They may grow, they may learn to act differently in public or private, may put on a show for their friends, family, or even themselves, or may even become traumatized by some horrible event. But in the long run, and for the most part, a person is today the same person they were yesterday, and are the same person they will be tomorrow. You, for instance, know who you are deep down. It may not be the face you show your coworkers or even your loved ones, but you have an idea of who you are, what you stand for, and what you want so deeply ingrained in yourself that nothing can ever change it. Perhaps you're stubborn and hate to change, but know that once your opinions do change, you will hold to the new belief as strongly as you held to your old ones. Maybe you have a fiery personality, but prefer to go with the flow of things instead of lashing out. Either way, you know yourself better than anyone else does. So why rely on the definition of others to decide who you are? Why consider your date of birth a predestined outcome of who you will become? This book isn't a zodiac. It won't give you glimpses into your future through horoscopes or try to understand why you are the way you are. But what it will do is help you understand yourself a little bit better, and it will help you understand others. Knowing how your base personality will mesh with another's can help you learn how to talk to them, how to interact with them, and how to live with them. In this new self-diagnosed pathology, there are 5 base personalities: the river, rock, flame, tree, and wind, each with one of 5 secondary personalities. Of the 25 possible combinations, each person should be able to find themselves. That knowledge will allow you to better understand who you are. And if you are able to determine who other people are, or if they are willing to discover themselves within these pages, you will be better able to understand your interactions with them. Each base personality is represented by a different function of the human condition. The river is represented by determination, the rock by consideration. A flame is a representation of creativity, a tree of conformity, and the wind is representative of change. These 5 base personality types seem, as far as I am concerned, to encompass every living soul on Earth. I hope you do manage to discover yourself among these pages, and that knowledge helps you to understand where your life is going and how you can help yourself achieve your goals. Section 1. The River. Base personality, the river. Whether it is a mountain stream gurgling through the wilderness or the mighty Amazon branching out across thousands of miles, a river is bound by its banks. Its path is determined the moment the ice melts on the mountaintops or when an underground reservoir first bubbles up to the surface of the earth. A river has a beginning and an end, and very little can change its path. This is not necessarily a bad thing, however. A river knows exactly where it came from, knows exactly where it's going. Their riverbeds have been etched into the earth since long before they first began their journey, and they will follow that path with single-minded diligence no matter what stands in their path. As a result, only the mightiest of storms or the interference of man can alter their paths. A child who is determined to become a doctor, a leader in business, or even an astronaut, and who eventually becomes exactly what they always thought they would be, often has the base personality of a river. Once they have determined what path they wish to follow, what riverbed their waters will run through, they will follow each step towards that goal, no matter what others have to say about it. In short, a river's base personality is determination. Of course, this does not always end up being something good. Heavy drug users, alcoholics, those who often succeed at committing suicide also have river personalities at their core. Once they have determined that that is the path for them, very little can bring them back from that edge. And even when they have been brought away from it, most will fall right back into their riverbeds and continue on as if nothing had changed. In either case, a river is often unchanging. However, once a river's path has changed, it is just as difficult to get them to revert back to the way they were before. They have found a new riverbed to follow, and anything from their previous one is no longer relevant to them. Just as their professional lives are a set of determined steps, so too is their personal life. A river will remain firmly dedicated to their partner no matter what happens. Bumps in the road are rarely enough to divert their paths, and they will often strive to hold onto a relationship long after it is toxic for them to do so. In their minds, the relationship will work no matter what, and nothing anyone else can say or do about it will make a difference. Until, of course, they find a new riverbed. Once that happens, through force or necessity, they will often forget about their past relationships, some going so far as to completely erase the memories of it from their minds. Financially, rivers are often very well off, in the long run at the very least. With their goal in mind, a river will be sure to set extra funds aside rather than spend them, so that they can be assured that there is nothing standing between them and the ocean. A river's determination makes them perfect candidates for powerful careers. Difficult subjects don't scare them, because they know that as long as they keep flowing, they will get to where they want to go. The longer a river continues to flow towards a destination, the harder it is to change their path, As their waters flow over their riverbed, they dig themselves deeper into it, eroding the earth around them and ensuring that their desires will be attained. For this reason, it is important, either as a river or as someone who wishes to change a river's path, that good goals, such as careers, relationships, and education, be settled on early, and that bad goals, such as substance abuse, suicidal thoughts, and the like, be ended as quickly as it is discovered. Allowing the river to stay on course for too long can make it impossible to stop them. The river's secondary personalities. The Mississippi, River. The Mississippi subtype of the river personality is, in comparison to the other subtypes, the most resilient to change. Their determination knows no bounds, and even less can be done to alter their paths once they have set their goals. Often mistaken for mountain stream subpersonalities, the Mississippi's determination is usually called pure stubbornness. Not only will a Mississippi refuse to change their paths, but they will often refuse to even stop to listen to people who suggest that they might not be going down the path they think they are. In their minds, what they are doing is right. It will help them, and there is no reason to do it any other way. This determination can have excellent results when it comes to business or education. They are often the first to receive promotions once they settle on a career, because their determination to reach the top will not let anything stand in their way. They appear to be hard workers who genuinely care about the company they work for. It does not matter if that company is some gigantic law firm or a basic fast food chain. Wherever they are, this is the path for them, and stopping to think about other opportunities is simply a waste of time. The same is true for their education. Whether their goal is simply to finish high school or achieve a basic college degree, or to work their way towards a PhD, a Mississippi will keep going until they reach their goal. Often, a Mississippi will be the first to do so as well. While their classmates look for electives, secondary interests, or extracurricular activities, the Mississippi will be the one working only on finishing their task. This is not to say that they are always the smartest or the best students, simply that they will not stop moving forward until they reach the end of their riverbed. However, while their determination helps them in business and education, it is not as helpful in relationships and personal life. A Mississippi will be one of the most caring of the personalities, devoting all their attention to a single person. As long as their partner enjoys the single-minded devotion, everything will be fine. However, Mississippis are often considered clingy, not wanting to do anything without their partner, and will usually rush towards marriage without stopping to consider other alternatives. They marry young and, if they are not careful, divorce young as well. A Mississippi also has the tendency to become a stalker should their love interest not share their love, or should their relationship fall apart. Unable to change to a new riverbed to find a new partner, the Mississippi will often pine after their chosen love, habitually check their social media status, look for their vehicles in every parking lot, and may devolve down to direct stalking, all in the name of love, indetermination. In their personal lives, the Mississippi will typically have only one interest or one hobby at a time. Whether it is a certain television show, a set of action figures, or a particular game, the Mississippi will talk about little else. While that doesn't make them experts in their area of interest, finding someone who shares their level of commitment to it is difficult. This devotion to a single hobby can also sometimes lead to hoarding. Devoting entire rooms or the entire house to specific items can lead to a large mess if they are not equally determined to keep a clean house. On the bright side, the Mississippi is virtually incapable of cheating on their partners, will be experts in their hobby, their jobs, and, if it is one of their goals, their education. In addition, like all rivers, Mississippis are more likely to save any money not spent on their hobbies, leaving them in a better financial situation than most other personalities. And as long as they can keep their goals away from self-destruction, a Mississippi is often very content with their lives, even if others believe they are too focused. The mountain stream, river rock. While seemingly similar to a Mississippi personality from the outside, a mountain stream personality is more contemplative about their decisions in life. Rather than simply selecting a goal and setting out to meet it headlong, A mountain stream will wind its way through the wilderness, picking out its path carefully. Once they have settled on their paths, after curving their way through rock-covered beds, a mountain stream will converge upon a larger river, only then to seek the end of their path. Early on in their paths, small storms in life can alter their course, which can either increase or decrease the amount of time it takes them to reach their goal. Once their path is set, however, their determination sets in and nothing can stand in their way, even if it means falling off a few cliffs on their journey. Instead of petering out, these falls, when reflected upon, are considered the most beautiful parts of their life, full of loud crashes and fast-flowing moments. These moments of contemplation before settling their path allow mountain streams to enjoy a fuller sense of commitment to their ideals. They have considered why they are heading where they are heading, and are now going to get there, and this gives them a larger sense of inner peace. In their early lives, they often try a slightly larger variety of career opportunities before settling on their final career path. This bouncing back and forth, while still determined to find a career, allows them the peace of mind of knowing they have made the correct choice. Once they have settled on a career they like, they tend to move quickly through the ranks into management. While this happens for them at a later point in life than for most other personality types, they never regret their final decision. The same is once again true for their education, especially in college. Once they decide to go, which may or may not happen early in life, a mountain stream often considers a wider variety of majors before settling on one. Rarely, however, will even a mountain stream select more than one subject to major in. While they may give themselves some background knowledge of other disciplines, a mountain stream, like most river personalities, only has the determination to follow a single path all the way to completion. For relationships, a mountain stream is very good at long-term commitments, but often has trouble settling on the right partner at first. Their sense of independence and initial indecision leads to many short-term relationships. However, once they have settled on a partner, they will do everything they can to keep that partner in their lives. Once they've entered a long-term relationship, they will fail to see any other options and are often extremely happy with their final choice. Should something go wrong, they are prone to pining after their partner for an extended period of time, and it will take them a long time to find a new partner in either the long or the short term. Some will resort to mild stalking, but most will simply move through a haze, unable to figure out what went wrong or why they are suddenly alone. For personal hobbies, a mountain stream will typically have many interests from early in their lives, but will have a more concentrated knowledge and interest in a single hobby later in life. While they are capable of engaging in conversations about past hobbies, they often grow bored when their main hobby is not discussed, and will sometimes move on to find people who will share their interest. While they are not as prone to it as others, a mountain stream can sometimes become a hoarder, gathering as much of their topic of interest as they can in a single place. While it takes a mountain stream a while to do so, later on in life they are often very good with money. As their lives condense down to a single path, a mountain stream will let go of their past commitments and will begin to save what they have so they can enjoy it. In addition, they are less prone to self-destruction than other river personalities. Because they spend a great deal of time contemplating their final paths, mountain streams rarely decide that substance abuse or even suicide is a good path for them. The hot spring, river flame. A hot spring personality subtype is based on creative determination. Unable to change their paths and sitting in pools of their own creativity, a hot spring personality is determined to show the people around them just how great they are. A hot spring does not move around much and will often spend their entire lives in a single location. However, they are not content to simply fade into the background of their community and will typically strive to become famous in their community. They may seek to become great singers, artists, actors, or writers, but only within the confines of the people in their life. While their creativity knows few bounds, their desire to expand does. Because of their determination to expose their creativity is so strong, hot spring personalities rarely have stable career paths. Instead, they will play their music around town for a few dollars a night. They will sell their artwork to visiting tourists or donate them to local museums, or will write excellent but small books about the history of their community. Just because their reach is small, however, does not mean that they are not good at what they do. Their river-based determination forces them to continue to hone their craft until they are the best that they can be. When it comes to education, very few hot springs have a formalized degree. While this is often because places of higher learning are not readily available to them without leaving their community, it is also because they do not feel as though they have the time for it. Their goal isn't to learn how to become better at their craft, but to instead become better through direct experience. Spending time on other areas of study are both difficult and an unnecessary burden. They are the actors who never go on to college, or the artists who doodle in class, paying no attention to the world around them. They are determined to be the best, but education often becomes nothing more than a distraction. Their love lives often have the same problem. While they are very devoted to the ones they love, if their partner drifts away from their interest or moves away physically, the hot spring will often forget about them and will simply wait for their next partner to come to them. They are, however, very avid lovers of the partner they have, but are not above drifting towards other partners who happen to visit their pool. Their determination does not rely on a single individual, but is instead directed towards their proximity. A hot spring has no time for hobbies that are not directly related to their area of creativity. An artist will not collect model trains, for instance, nor will an actor waste their time with comic books. Instead, each will find a subject within their area of creativity and will focus solely upon that hobby. An artist will, for instance, collect a large number of books on the history and intricacies of different painting styles, and an actor will have a large collection of movies, scripts, or props. Subjects outside of their area of creativity, however, hold little interest for a hot spring. Financially, a hot spring is often left without. Until they manage to become as good as they always dreamed to be, their money comes to them in small doses. Quite often, they have trouble simply making ends meet, and may never achieve the fickle status of fame, even within their communities. If, however, they do achieve that status, they typically have no idea what to do with their money. Having grown used to not having it, the hot spring personality is prone to wasting their money on frivolous items, or to putting it in a bank and forgetting about it, continuing their lives as if nothing had changed. Unable to move beyond the scope of their personality, and determined to become the best no matter what, hot springs are prone to depression and self-destruction. This is especially true the longer it takes for them to make it in their chosen field. Like all rivers, once they start down this path, it is very difficult to get them out of it. It can become even worse if they do achieve fame while on a self-destructive path, as they will suddenly have the financial means to continue down it. However, despite the downsides, a hot spring personality glows with the heat of their waters. They are very outgoing and will become acquaintances with anyone who visits them. Once they have actual friends or partners, the hot spring is loath to let them go, but will not chase after them when they leave. The estuary, river tree. Unlike other river subtypes, the estuary personality is more determined to fit in with their community instead of to break out and become the best at a particular subject. This is not to say that they are not very good at what they do, simply that they prefer to walk the middle path and are determined not to stand out as either excellent or terrible. When it comes to a career, an estuary will typically find themselves working in middle management. They are capable of advancing, but don't want to take on the responsibility of doing so. If they are not middle management, they will instead be among the best workers, but will often refuse offers of advancement and will not seek them out on their own. Like other river personalities, they do know where they want to work and will usually pick a career very early on in life, but will simply refuse to push their way through the ranks in order to advance. In terms of education, they will usually seek higher education, but will do their best not to stand out in their field, even if their capabilities are much higher than those of the others in their classroom. They are usually quiet and will not publicize their opinions unless they are forced to. When they do, they will keep their answers short and vague. What they fail to express in public, however, they overachieve in private. While they are determined to appear as if they are average, their river personality archetype forces them to become experts in their field in their own minds. Some, when pulled by a desire to express their knowledge, will write with a pen name or simply submit their ideas anonymously. When it comes to relationships, an estuary personality type is very devoted, but careful in how they express that devotion. Rarely will they give public displays of affection, unless other people around them are already doing it. Their determination to blend into the background elicits specific responses depending on the situation. Hating change, an estuary will fight to keep their partners as long as it does not end up creating a big scene in the long run. They do not stray from their partners willingly, and despite being quiet about it, are very committed. However, should they lose their partner for some reason, they will not go out of their way to bring them back. Instead, they will avoid causing a scene and will wait for the next partner to come around. As far as hobbies are concerned, an estuary will tend to exhibit the same interests as the people around them. Their determination to fit in will force them to learn everything they can about the interests of their personal communities so they do not stand out. Just as with their education, even if they become experts in their community's interests, an estuary will not let on to the full extent of their knowledge. In addition, should they change communities, for whatever the reason, they will forget anything the new community is not interested in, and will learn everything they can about the interests of their new community. Financially, estuaries are very good at saving up their money. Because they usually associate themselves with the general public, they will make sure that their living conditions do not appear to be any better or worse than the other people in their lives. For this reason, they are often able to save up a substantial amount of money that they will have no intention of spending or talking about unless they change communities, or absolutely have to mention it. Because of the determined lack of individualism, estuary personalities are prone to bouts of depression when involved in large changes. It does not matter if these changes are for the better or not. The mere fact that life has changed and that they must now learn a new way of life is often enough to send them on a self-destructive path. However, they are very unlikely to take their own lives as a result. Doing so would involve drawing attention to their lives, and they would rather be unhappy than noticed. On the other hand, when they are happy, they can be little islands of entertainment at parties or social events, talking about the rumors they've heard or the interests they have, as long as it doesn't mean standing out in the crowd. The waterspout, river wind. The last of the river subtypes, a waterspout, like its real-life counterpart, can be quite destructive in nature. With their river-based determination paired with their wind-based need for change, the waterspout personality can become a person of great accomplishments, both good and bad. A waterspout is determined to change the world to match their mental image of what is considered perfect. One minute they will be advocating for women's rights, the next they will be challenging the views of their friends regarding zoning laws. Great debaters, the waterspout is determined to make the world different, even if that means sacrificing their own happiness. When it comes to careers, waterspouts often have the biggest voices and are constantly trying to make others do what they feel is best. When that means agreeing with company policy, the waterspout pushes other coworkers to follow the rules, to change their behavior to match their own. When they disagree, they are the ones who form unions, organize strikes, and push for the advancement of rules and guidelines that match their own. This determination often makes them a thorn in their employer's sides and can result in a great deal of movement between jobs, either because they get fired or because they are unable to create change and begin to feel stagnated by the environment. In their pursuits of education, the waterspout has difficulty settling on a single major. Though they typically lean towards psychology and sociology, areas where they can learn human behavior and how to influence it, they are often too busy protesting to pay enough attention to their schoolwork. Once they do achieve a degree, they struggle to find a workplace that both fits their knowledge and complies with their view of how the world should be. Relationships for a waterspout can be strained. Their determination to change everything to match their own way of life often creates rifts between them and their partners. They are unable, however, to change themselves, and believe that the only way to be happy is to make their partner more like them. When their partners do share the same outlook on life, a waterspout never strays. When their outlooks are different, however, and when the waterspout is unable to change the way their partner behaves, they have a tendency to look for a new partner. The same is true when they lose a partner. Rather than dwell on the loss, a waterspout goes out of their way to find a new partner as quickly as possible so that they may begin to change them to be more like the waterspout. Just like other river archetypes, a waterspout often only has time for a single hobby in their personal life. However, rather than dwell on why they do or don't like a particular thing, they instead strive to get the rest of their community to become interested in their own interest. This can involve actively forcing their friends to watch a show and then arguing why it is good, or beginning a community theater to prove to the community why their style is better than someone else's. If they fail to change the opinions of the people around them, the waterspout will often move on to find people they can get to agree with them, leaving their old friends wondering why they no longer see the waterspout. Financially, the waterspout is typically poor. All their extra funds go towards advancing change in their community. Whether this is from doing public demonstrations or promotions, or because they buy gifts for their friends that have something to do with their own interest, the waterspout rarely has the patience to keep money in the bank. They do, however, typically manage to take care of their own expenses before spending what is left. They are determined to enact change, and they can't do that if they don't have a roof over their heads. On the other hand, their furniture or even the food in their cupboards is often sparse and cheap. A waterspout's determination to enact change in the world around them rarely allows them to move towards self-destruction. Just as they cannot enact change without a roof over their heads, they cannot create change while battling addiction or while dead. As a result, when things go wrong, they simply move on to the next community and start over again. Only in extremely rare cases does a waterspout get stuck somewhere where change is impossible, and only those that find themselves in that situation move towards self-destructive behavior. Personality type: the Rock. Base personality: the Rock. It does not matter if they are tiny pebbles or gigantic unmoving boulders. Rocks are heavy objects, nearly incapable of moving on their own. All too often, they rely on outside influence, be it an earthquake, an animal making a dent, or a human moving them for pleasure or business. And yet despite this, rocks make up the very foundation of our civilization. They hold up our buildings, create our roads, and provide obstacles for our entertainment. While they are often considered to be stubborn or slow, the base personality trait of rocks is actually consideration. As a rule, rocks take their time before deciding on a course of action, and can often begin to act long after the need for the action has passed. Contemplative children are most likely to grow into careers that have a high level of thinking, but not necessarily a high level of action. Philosophers, scientists, professors, and judges all fall on the good side of a rock's career path. On the flip side, however, rocks are also often the ones who choose careers late in life and will typically settle for less than what they deserve. Once they find a comfortable position in life, they rarely see a need to advance. Their natural tendency to contemplate the possible futures leaves them with the notion that it is better to sit still and think about life than to risk taking action and failing. While this base personality trait can be bad for fruitful futures, it can be beneficial for those who would take a more self-destructive path. Once a rock is set somewhere, it doesn't move, which means they are rarely set down a path towards heavier drugs, alcohol, or suicide. Although if someone pushes them down that hill, they move quickly through it. While similar to river personalities in that it often takes other people or great events to change their position in life, the rock usually does not have a long-term goal that they strive to complete. They are instead happier to stay where they are. For this reason, rocks rarely move up the management chain within their chosen career path unless someone or something pushes them up the ladder. That being said, once they do move up the corporate ladder, they are often quite content with their new jobs and think long and hard about how they can improve their own life while in this new role, without moving up or down the ladder again. When it comes to personal relationships, rocks are the type of people who will hold on tightly to the first partner they can find. They are not terribly picky about who they choose to connect with and will ignore outside advice about their relationship, whether good or bad. However, they're also the type who will love the one they're with, and if their partner leaves, they will rarely follow. Being alone allows them more time to think about life anyway. This also means that should a toxic partner re-enter their lives, they will see no reason to not get back together with them, despite the warnings from their friends. Financially, Rock's overall income varies wildly. Because they are content to settle for whatever allows them to live comfortably, Rocks will often have lower paying entry-level job positions, typically in a field that allows them a lot of free time to do as they please. However, there are also many Rock personalities that are very well off, their friends, family, or co-workers having pushed them higher up the corporate ladder into a higher income. Because Rocks are ultimately content with what they have and the lifestyle they lead, those who make more money usually maintain the spending habits they had when they made less, and so end up saving more. In any aspect of life, the longer a rock stays in one spot, the harder it is to move them. They sink into the ground around them and let it hold them there. Therefore, in order to get a rock moving towards a goal, it is best to begin the process early. An old idiom that a rolling stone gathers no moss is undeniably true. However, getting the rock rolling can be a process in and of itself. The rock's secondary personalities. The island. Rock River. When reading or hearing the word island, people automatically envision some tropical paradise surrounded by endless ocean. Maybe there's a palm tree swaying in the wind, or a beautiful beach stretching out to the horizon. However, in this context, an island simply means a piece of rock that sticks out of a water source. Perhaps it is a single boulder holding its own against the rushing whitewater river behind it, or maybe it's a small rise in the ground that sticks out of a water source, forcing the water to fork around it. Or maybe it is that island in the ocean you first saw when you read the word. No matter which description you use, an island is a rock-based personality surrounded by the determination of a river. The island, still guided by their deep desire to contemplate life, is nonetheless on a specific path, and nothing can move them from that ideal. As the river flows past them, the island is slowly but surely moved down the stream. Sometimes their movements are quick, as when the river floods and its currents grow swift. Sometimes their movements are slow, and only bits and pieces of them break off to float down the stream over a seemingly endless amount of time. But whichever is the case, almost always the island eventually gets to their destination. This is not to say that they cannot fail to reach their goals. Sometimes, as when a person steps onto an actual river and removes a rock from its bed, an island can be removed from their river of determination and placed on a new path by outside intervention. It is also possible that their river can run so fast and become so strong that the island is picked up and placed on the riverbank, where they wait for who knows how long before returning to their path. Unlike most rock-based personalities, the island has a decent chance of moving up the corporate ladder in their chosen careers. Because of their river-based sub-personality, an island is often determined to make it to a certain point in their career before settling down. It does, however, take them a long time to do so. A promotion is often 5, even 10 years later than their contemporaries, and their coworkers often consider the advancement overdue. The same is true of an island's education. Deciding which major they want to declare, or even what level of education they want to complete, can take them a long time to figure out. But once they do, they make slow, steady steps toward that goal. More often than not, they do this by taking a single course at a time, usually through the internet. It will take them years longer than most students, but they will make sure that they finish no matter what. Islands are very loyal when it comes to their partners. Like all rocks, they often settle for whoever happens to be near them. But once they have a partner, they move steadily towards a long life together. However, because they always have the river pushing at their backs, an island is not above rolling down the line to a new partner should the one they're with turn out to be too toxic to live with. An island often has few hobbies that do not involve a lot of thought. Strategy or trivia games and entertainments are not unusual, as they require a great deal of concentration and keep islands actively engaged. It is more common, however, to find an entire section of an island's living space, if not an entire room, devoted to books. Like all rocks, islands love to think and learn, and nothing beats having a good book or two or 100 to pick from. Financially, islands keep money only long enough to achieve a goal. They are slow to replace outdated or even broken equipment, believing that it has always served them well enough in the past. If an island makes it their goal to save money, though, they will rarely have trouble amassing a surprising amount of extra cash. Unfortunately, like most river types, what makes an island good can also make them bad. Should an island contemplate too long on self-destructive behaviors, their river typing helps to push them along that path just as easily as it pushes them towards greatness. Friends of an island should always watch to make sure they do not start down that path, because it can be just as difficult to get them off of it. The Boulder. Rock. Standing resolute atop a mountain, a boulder is an impressive sight. It remains in place despite the greatest efforts of nature to dislodge it, and man must either move around or climb over it in order to pass it by, or blow it up. Either way, it doesn't move on its own, no matter what is happening around it. Rain washes off of it, wind diverts around it, and flame cannot do more than superficially mar its surface. A boulder stands as an obstacle to time itself, solid, firm, and resolute. A person with a boulder personality reflects its namesake. Everything about them is either slow or impossible to change, from their opinions to their lifestyle choices to their most important beliefs. Considered by most to simply be too stubborn to change their ways, a boulder has simply spent most of its life contemplating who they are and who they want to be, and will let no one change their minds. When it comes to their career, a boulder will find a job that they enjoy and will not change it unless it is absolutely necessary. Even then, it takes either the closure of the company or dire poverty to make that change. Advancement up the corporate ladder is almost laughable. They have no desire to lead others or to take on extra responsibility. Instead, they remain in whatever position they were hired for and stay there until retirement. This is not to say they are not good at their jobs. Far from it, in fact. More often than not, they are experts at what they do. They are the farmers, the factory workers, or the old waitress who knows everyone's name and order by rote. The down-to-earth, hard-working men and women that keep the world moving, even when they don't. They have contemplated what they want in life and are happy to have it. Despite how deeply a boulder thinks, they rarely have degrees in higher education. Not because they could not learn something new, but because taking that step forward toward college is nearly impossible for them. If, however, they are forced in some way towards a higher education, they will settle on a single major and will finish it with grudging diligence. Even if a new subject sparks their interest, they will usually not change their minds about their goals and will keep moving toward their original major. Their relationships follow the path of their double rock-based personality to a T. They will not chase after a partner, but will hold on tightly to anyone who chooses them. Their only problem is that they spend so much time contemplating their life that they have issues actually showing their emotions, which can push their partners away if they are not careful about it. A boulder's hobbies involve a great deal of mental fortitude, even in areas that it is not expected of them by most people. For many, their homes have entire libraries devoted to certain topics of interest, but they know those topics so well that they rarely have need to use them. For others, like the farmer, a boulder personality knows everything about the job and can recite the different aspects of it, including weather patterns, planting times, good years, bad years, and all other manner of information, without needing to consult a book. Their devotion to consideration leaves them with no time for fancy talk, and they are often quite blunt. Financially, a boulder often struggles. Their acceptance of where they are in life often leaves them stretching every dollar to its limit. Despite that fact, they are often quite frugal, as they spend a great deal of time deciding whether or not they actually need something new, and will usually wait until what they have breaks before finally coughing up the money to replace it. So, if a boulder happens to land in a higher paying position, their normal tendencies to live paycheck to paycheck ceases to hold them back, and they end up saving a large amount of money each month. Boulders rarely, if ever, head down a self-destructive path. While in their contemplation they may think of doing something self-destructive, they will rarely have the initiative to actually do anything about it. As a result, they often live quite a bit longer than most other personalities. Not because they are tougher, but because they lack the motivation to change where they currently are in life. The volcano. Rock flame. In the real world, a volcano is just another mountain that stands resolute against time. However, when the conditions are right, the volcano explodes, sending flames of change and destruction all around them, altering the landscape forever. Despite their penchant for destruction, volcanoes have been worshipped by man for thousands of years because of all the benefits they provide, such as pumice for fertile soil, obsidian for tools, and more importantly, heat and fire. Like their namesake, people with a volcano personality spend a great deal of time contemplating their next move, then explode in a fury of creativity, only to lie dormant again for long periods of time. They are the kinds of people who once or twice in their lifetime create something of such beauty that everyone talks about it for the rest of their lives, and wonders why the volcano never produced more. Volcanoes typically have average careers. Like most rock-based personalities, they often settle early on a career choice and remain there for the rest of their lives. However, when their creative juices begin to flow, they will suddenly leap through the corporate ladder in a fury of motion before settling down again for years at a time. Just when their bosses begin to think they have done everything they can, the volcano will explode again, rising even higher. For education, the same is held true. A volcano may spend years avoiding getting a higher education, only to suddenly burst through college in half the time of most other people. It is even possible that they will return to college over and over, each time their inner flame sub-personality begins to boil, learning a new skill or tackling a new major each time. This can happen at any point in their lives, whether they're just leaving high school or just entering a retirement home. A volcano can no more control when its flame will come out than men can control the movement of the stars. In their relationships, volcanoes settle quite easily with whoever they are with. However, when their flame takes over, only one of two things can happen. Either they will rush through the relationship into marriage, children, etc., or they will burn the relationship to the ground, only to start again with somebody new. As rocks, they can no more chase after partners who leave them than any other rock personality, but they will often try to keep those they love around. Volcano personalities typically only have one or two hobbies at a time. As with other rocks, a volcano needs to have a hobby that requires a great deal of consideration. Often they are writers or artists on the side, struggling to come up with the perfect story, the perfect piece of art, only to suddenly create one or two in their lifetime when their flame typing takes control. On the other hand, when they explode and their creativity starts to flow, they have a tendency to stop following one of their hobbies completely, their interest in it being destroyed in their eruption. A volcano's financial situation fluctuates just as wildly as the rest of their life. While they will spend years steadily building up a savings account, they have the tendency to suddenly spend all of it on something that appears to be frivolous. A volcano may, on a whim, suddenly use their saved cash to purchase a new car, boat, or house, and then struggle to make the payments when they become dormant again. As a result, it is in a volcano's partner's best interest to keep a bit of their own money held in a separate, untouchable account, just in case the volcano spends everything all at once. Unlike most rock-based personalities, a volcano is always in danger of suddenly acquiring self-destructive habits. An unexpected eruption of change at the wrong time can send them careening down a path of drugs, alcohol, or suicide with little to no warning, leaving their loved ones wondering what happened. For this reason, volcanoes should always be treated with an extra bit of care to ensure that they will not suddenly destroy everything they have strived to build over the years. The petrified wood, rock, tree. In nature, Petrified wood consists of a piece of tree or other organic plant life that has had all its organic material replaced with minerals. While it retains the original appearance of its organic shape, the wood itself is now nothing but stone. A fossilized representation of the life it used to have, a permanent copy. People with a petrified wood personality, like with any tree sub-personality, strive to blend in with their community. In addition, their rock-based personality gives them the contemplative resources necessary to know exactly what the community expects of them. However, once they have settled and allowed themselves to conform with the community around them, a petrified wood personality has a difficult time changing when the community values do. In their careers, petrified wood personalities tend to start out as everyone's friend and work hard at working just as hard as everyone else. If that means doing more or less work than the supervisor expects, that's fine with them, as long as it is as much as everyone else. However, when the petrified wood's co-workers begin to work more or less than the petrified wood does, they end up standing out as either better or worse than their co-workers. Depending on how long the petrified wood personality has been working at that particular occupation, they may or may not be able to adjust their work ethic to match. Rarely, if ever, will a petrified wood personality strive to climb the corporate ladder, though they may think about it often. When it comes to education, a petrified wood personality will only go as far as their friends or family carry them. If they manage to find someone who will be right there with them all the way through a higher education, they will stick it to the end. But if the person they are blending in with stop their own education, the petrified wood will as well. When it comes to a major, they will prefer something that involves more thought than action, just like other rock-based personalities, but will ultimately choose whatever is most popular among their community. In a relationship, a petrified wood personality does whatever is normal for their community. If their friends all get married early, a petrified wood will follow suit, even if their partner is not exactly right for them. They will also cling tighter to relationships than other rock-based personalities, simply to avoid being gossiped about by the members of their community. They do, however, have a habit of becoming stuck in their ways, and will rarely change themselves in order to make a relationship last. Petrified woods take on the hobbies of their friends early on. If their friends at a young age enjoy collecting baseball cards, for instance, then the petrified wood will collect baseball cards to fit in, even if they don't really like them. Once this aspect of their lives settles in, the petrified wood will end up collecting baseball cards for the rest of their lives, unable to change their hobby easily. However, if the group changes what hobby they follow, perhaps decide they like to read books instead, before the petrified wood's personality sets, then they will be able to slowly change their hobby to the new one, at least publicly. In private, the petrified wood, like all rock-based personalities, prefers quiet contemplation with books or games that involve deep thought. Though if their community frowns upon this behavior, they will typically hide this part of themselves from the outside world. Financially, a petrified wood keeps the same spending habits their entire lives. If they are raised to be frugal, then they will spend as little as possible late in life, often resulting in a decent amount of money in savings. If, however, they are raised in an environment that promotes spending money, using credit cards and taking out loans, the petrified wood will follow suit in their later years, leaving them struggling to survive from paycheck to paycheck. While no rock-based personality is realistically prone to self-destruction, the petrified wood is the least likely. Not because they do not contemplate it, but because doing so would make them stand out in the crowd. Therefore, unless their community is steeped in drugs, alcohol, or self-destruction, like a suicide cult, it is very unlikely that a petrified wood personality will develop these traits. The dust. Rock wind. Dust, the bane of the homekeeper. It drifts on the slightest breeze and settles into the tiny cracks and crevices of every object in the home. Regular dusting gets rid of most of it, but ask any stay-at-home parent and you will hear the same story. It's impossible to get rid of all of it. Riding on the currents of change, dust personalities are the only rock-based personality who openly enjoys traveling from place to place. Everywhere they touch, they leave a small piece of themselves behind. As rocks, dust personalities spend a great deal of time considering their life, what it means, what they believe, what others should believe. But rather than keep these thoughts to themselves, they drift from community to community to spread their ideas to others. Dust personalities generally choose to have careers that involve a lot of travel. Whether it's a corporate salesman trying to convince another company to sell, or a truck driver traveling cross-country, a dust personality is always happiest when it's able to move from place to place. As a result, they rarely enjoy middle management positions. Sitting behind a desk simply does not appeal to them. However, those who shoot to the top of a company and are able to regain their ability to travel often do quite well in their positions. In general, a dust doesn't have time for higher education. While the advancement of online degrees has increased their ability to earn a degree on the move, the dust personality of the past has been too focused on spreading their own ideas to sit still and listen to someone else's. Young dust personalities often forego college completely to travel straight out of high school in order to better decide on what they believe so they can spread that belief to others. Relationships are difficult for dust personalities, however. While they usually spend a great deal of time considering what kind of partner they want, and will usually describe that ideal partner at length to their friends, the dust personality rarely takes the time to actually search for that kind of partner. Although when they do find a partner, they are very loyal. They have considered what kind of person they want, and they are very reluctant to lose them when they finally have them. When their relationships do break apart, the dust partner always carries a piece of the dust with them. Whether it's a belief, an idea, or a mannerism, the partners of dust personalities never quite rid themselves of that person, much like the housekeeper rarely manages to get all the dust out of a home. Dusts don't have too many hobbies. Once again, their travel makes the collection of items difficult, and they prefer to read their books electronically because it's easier to carry a library in a PDF than to carry a library. Like all rock-based personalities, however, they certainly enjoy reading. In addition, any hobby that is lightweight or that can be carried easily with them is of interest to a dust. Photography is a favorite, particularly in the digital age. The ability to hone a skill without carrying extra items is absolutely ideal to a dust. Financially, dust personalities never seem to have much money on hand. What little they manage to acquire almost always seems to be spent on travel expenses, e-books, or lavish parties where they can spread their ideas onto others. This nomadic lifestyle never seems to generate a steady or overflowing income. As a result, dust personalities live paycheck to paycheck more often than not. The idea of self-destruction rarely crosses the mind of a dust personality. However, when they do develop an unhealthy habit, it is far more likely to be alcoholic in nature as opposed to drugs or suicide. For one, alcohol tends to involve more people, allowing the dust to spread their ideas to a wider area. For another, heavy drugs and suicide would render the dust unable to spread their ideas, which would absolutely destroy them far faster than a self-destructive habit. Personality Type 3, the Flame. Base personality, the Flame. From the tiniest ember to the widest of wildfires, flames can be dangerous when left alone. But there is a fascination in their destructiveness. Flames can be seductive as well as dangerous, used for heat as well as for pain. If light represents knowledge on Plato's cave wall, then the fire is the source of all knowledge. But just as too much knowledge can hurt you, so can playing with fire. People who have the flame for their base personality are represented by the basic drive of creation. Yes, fire can destroy when left without supervision, but a flame can do so much more than that. Fire can heat up the house, and flames can heat up their lives. Fire can be used to heat the forge, power machines, provide light, and clear the ground of old growth so that new life can spring up. What looks like destruction at first is actually just the first steps towards a new beginning, towards creation. Children with a flame personality often grow up to be artists, actors, inventors, and engineers. Their drive to create something new, something never seen before, pushes them to the extent of creativity. This is not the same, however, as a wind's desire for change. The flame isn't trying to change the world, it is simply trying to create. Flame personalities take on careers that allow for as much change as possible, and that do not have strict rules or management. Rarely does a flame stuck in a job with a dozen levels of management ever attempt to rise up that ladder, unless one of those positions have the option to change the way the company works. They are far more likely to be found working in small groups where everyone has a say, or more often alone in their homes where they can work on their favorite hobby and try to create something new. When it comes to education, a flame is far more likely to seek a higher degree in the arts. Whether it is actually art they major in, or performance, music, or writing, the flame is always to be found somewhere where creativity is strong and oppression is weak. Studying the arts gives them the momentum they need to become great at what they love, as long as their teachers do not lay down too much criticism and put out their inner fires. In their personal lives, flames burn hot and fast. The act of creating a new love is far more inspiring, far more inspirational than a long-term commitment, and they can begin to lose some of their heat when held too tightly. As a result, flames typically move from relationship to relationship, often leaving behind partners who can't help but feel burned from their contact with the flame. In general, a flame's hobbies are their lives. While it does happen, it is rare for a flame to manage to make enough money to live on while entertaining their hobby. As a result, they work not to earn money, but to have a home in order to keep their hobby going. Whether their hobby is music, painting, performance, writing, or some other creative activity, the flame is always working on their next big project. All their spare time becomes devoted to that hobby. If they work on it long enough, they can even learn to ignore criticism and grow from it. The trouble with flames is that flames which are doused, that are held back, often fizzle early in life and are prone to self-destruction. Often emotional, flame personalities wear their hearts on their sleeves and are easily insulted by even the smallest amount of criticism. This can lead them to rather heavy drug use and alcohol use early in life, and can even lead to suicide if their flames burn too brightly or die too quickly. Just as fire in the real world scorches the earth and leaves nothing behind, a flame has trouble living in one area for long periods of time. Before too long, they either pack up and move, or they fizzle where they are, their creative juice is burned away. It is not at all unusual to speak of a flame who lives to a ripe old age and hear them talk about the multitude of cities they lived in over the course of their life. Bigger cities help to negate this feeling in flames, however, as the larger a city is, the more likely it is to reach a larger audience just by moving a single block away. While a single flame personality may rise to prominence in a small town, rare is the small town that holds more than one. The steam, flame river. When water is heated beyond the boiling point, it begins to turn into a gas through the process of evaporation. This gas, steam, cools off quickly, but is initially released at temperatures over 200 degrees Fahrenheit, which is more than enough to burn your skin or cook some vegetables. Once the steam has run its course, it settles back down again into a liquid state where it waits to be heated back up. A steam personality follows this same basic trend. The flame in their personality dictates sudden creation, while the river in them inspires determination. Determination to finish a project or to begin a new endeavor. However, the time between starting a project and finishing it is usually extensive. The heat of their creativity is very powerful at first, but dwindles away quickly. In their careers, steam personalities tend to move back and forth between career options as well as steps on the corporate ladder. One moment they will be working a typical 9-to-5 job, then out of the blue they will decide to quit and start a do-it-yourself series of construction videos to sell online. When the momentum wears off, they stop their new project and grudgingly try to get their old job back. Or they will suddenly shoot up into management, only to find that they couldn't care less about the job and end up being demoted back down to their previous position. Ultimately, they are happiest when they have a set goal and the determination to create a new life. However, they will often settle for part-time work that allows them to create something during their time off. Rare is the STEAM personality who finishes college at an early age. While their flame-based personality gives them ample creativity to follow their artistic dreams, and while their river-based sub-personality gives them the determination to finish their education, their bursts of sudden creativity, followed by boredom, tend to dissuade them from finishing school all at once. Instead, they end up getting jobs where when their creativity wanes, and only return the next time their flame bursts out. The same is true of their relationships. A STEAM personality finds great joy at the beginning of a relationship, when creativity is the highest, and often is determined to see the relationship through to the end. However, when that burst of creativity fades, so do their relationships. If their partners stick with them through the slow times, a STEAM partner is likely to suddenly push for marriage, only to grow bored once the knots are tied. Many STEAM personalities go through multiple relationships and typically have at least one divorce under their belts by middle age. A STEAM's garage, attic, spare room, or living room, depending on their place of living, is typically filled to the brim with half-finished projects. A doghouse with half a roof for a dog they never bought. A canvas with a background but nothing else. Partial manuscripts and figurines still waiting for the second layer of paint are not unusual. As with all aspects of their lives, a STEAM personality gets a sudden desire to start a hobby, will buy all the items beginners need, will start the new project, and then will put it aside when their heat subsides. When they do follow a project to its completion, as the river-based determination compels them to do, the end result is rarely what they expected from the beginning, and feels as though it lacked creativity. These rarely finished projects join the half-finished ones in storage, never to be seen again. Financially, STEAM personalities are often some of the worst off. The only time they truly feel like saving money is when their creative flame bursts out. However, this is also when they find the desire to start a new hobby and typically spend what they would have saved starting a project that they never will complete. STEAMs that fail to have partners who save money for them scrape by from paycheck to paycheck each month. Because their creativity comes out so rarely, STEAM personalities are prone to self-destructive behavior. Their minds are conflicted with depression, self-doubt, and the desire to create something wonderful. This confliction often manifests itself with substance abuse of some sort, as they try to initiate a period of creativity. The substance abuse can, in many cases, then lead them towards suicidal behavior. The coal, flame, rock. Brought up from the depths of the earth, coal was once the main source of heat and power for all of mankind. Once the black rock was heated, it would provide warmth for hours on end before being spent, and even after the fire was taken away, it would continue to smolder in its pit, ready to burn the next thing that touched it. People with a coal personality work in much the same way. Their creativity, brought on by their base of flame, burns slowly through their rock-based consideration. While the works they create are few and far between, they are of excellent quality. Most often attributed to researchers who spend years of learning, studying, and analyzing a subject before finally producing their books about it, coal personalities are deep thinkers whose souls yearn to share their creativity. In their careers, coals tend to lean towards historians, scientists, and reporters. Their rock sub-personality pushes them towards higher learning, while their flame-based personality inspires them to create works of art and literature. Unlike rock-based, as opposed to personalities, they are not content merely to learn about a subject, but have a flame-based desire to share that knowledge with the world. Jobs that have no potential for growth, or that do not allow a coal to utilize their creativity, are repulsive to coals, and while they will work in these fields to earn money, they will never be happy at those jobs. While a coal is more than comfortable around their artistic flame-based friends who prefer direct art and performance-based education, Coals lean more towards the social sciences when pursuing a higher education. History, sociology, and writing are all likely majors for the coal, who only desires to share knowledge with the world through creations made with their own hands. While it can take them a while to choose a path, owing to their rock sub-personality, once they have picked a major that fits with their abilities to create, they often flourish. Coals are one of the most stable of the flame personalities when it comes to relationships. They spend a great deal of time considering who they want as a partner before allowing their creative tendencies to come out. Once they have chosen a partner, they tend to rush through the early stages of a relationship in order to achieve a status point of smoldering creativity. They seek partners who can help them share what they know, and often regret relationships in which their creative abilities are not appreciated. More often than not, a coal's hobbies reflect their education. One who chooses a history major will often have countless tomes about the subject from which they draw from to write their own books. The same can be said of those of the sciences, who will likely have their own version of a laboratory in their home where they can conduct their own experiments without outside influence. They also tend to enjoy games that involve a lot of thinking and creativity, where they can use their talents to outwit and outperform their friends. Financially, the coal is often quite well off. While their creations are few and far between, they are often of good enough quality to sell well. In addition, their rock sub-personality forces them to consider each action with regards to spending, and so are more frugal than other flame personalities. Although this generally favorable financial situation does not usually happen until middle to late in life, as it takes time for them to create their works in which they sell. While young, a coal is often seen as the researcher's equivalent of a struggling artist. Unlike many flame personalities, a coal is very unlikely to indulge in self-destructive behavior. While they do not always have a specific path to follow when they are considering their next creative work, they always know that someday they want to create something of value. This drive to create an impressive work tends to steer them away from drugs, alcohol, and especially suicide. Even if it takes them years to finally figure out what they want to do with their lives, they know they have a work to complete. Once that one is done, they stop to consider the next one and move on from there. The Inferno. Flame. Defined as a large fire that is dangerously out of control, an inferno can devastate anything it comes across. An inferno burns as hot as it can for as long as it can, before either putting itself out by destroying everything it can burn, or until firefighters manage to get the blaze under control. Inferno personalities follow the same path. They are driven to create something and become obsessed with the act of creation. Whether it is art, music, performance, or some other aspect, an Inferno personality has only a single desire: to create something amazing for all the world to see. Infernos do not typically take a traditional career path. The average 9-to-5 workday is stifling to an Inferno, and it dampens their creativity. Instead, Infernos make up the starving artists. They are willing to give up everything they have to promote their work, and can be seen on the street corners of every major city, peddling their creations in an attempt to hit it big. On the other hand, those that do manage to hit it big are always very well off. Very rarely does an Inferno personality pursue a higher education. Sitting in a classroom, suffering through structured lesson plans, is just as stifling to an Inferno as a 9-to-5 occupation. The drive to create, to move, makes them very poor students overall. More than any of the other flame-based personalities, the Infernos who do manage to get through college will be far more likely to pursue the arts for their degrees. Music, art, and performance are the most likely, though some may devote themselves towards directing as well. For the most part, Infernos are incapable of long-term relationships. Because of the way their passions burn, usually one of two things happens. Either they burn their partner out, or they find their partner holding them back. In either case, the Inferno is left alone. Not once to suffer through a bad relationship, an Inferno would rather have 1,000 flings than a single relationship that holds them back. An Inferno has no time for hobbies that do not constructively aid their creativity. Books, unless they pertain to their creative methods, video games, board games, and even television or movies are rare to be seen in an Inferno's home. On the other hand, scripts, canvases, and musical instruments will be displayed with pride, although they may be strewn around the Inferno's home haphazardly. An OCD Inferno is quite nearly an oxymoron. Financially, an Inferno has only one of two settings. Either they are filthy rich, their creativity having boosted them into fame, or they are dirt poor, pouring all of their time into their next creation. There does not seem to be an in-between, and those who do strike it rich are just as likely to blow through their money within months. For the Inferno, it is not the money that's important, it's the act of creation. While most people would be very unhappy without money, an Inferno could care less if they have it or not. In fact, many Infernos spend at least one stretch of time in their lives homeless, their passion overriding their need to pay bills. Of all the personalities there are, the Inferno is the most likely to develop self-destructive habits. Drugs, alcohol, and even attempted suicide are common markers of an Inferno personality. Anything they can use as inspiration for their next work of creation is something an Inferno will cling to. If that means getting high in order to see the world in a different light, that is what they will do. If it means getting drunk and drawing up on the depression that usually accompanies alcoholism, that is fine with them. If the rush of endorphins that accompanies attempted suicide is what they need to find inspiration, they will gladly try it out. The last, however, is more likely to happen to Infernos who have been held back in some way. The dampening of their flames is the equivalent of killing their souls. Once their souls die, they could not care less about their physical bodies. It is then that the attempted suicides turn into real ones. Friends and family of Inferno personalities must walk a careful line of allowing the Inferno to find inspiration and keeping them from destroying themselves in the process. The Campfire. Flame Tree. On the beach or in the woods, with a group of friends and family or all alone, people build campfires all over the world. They are the places where ghost stories are told, marshmallows are roasted, and where a light can be placed between a person and the encroaching darkness of the night. Campfires instill a sense of peace and safety in the wary camper. Those with a campfire personality are driven towards conformity within a community. They feel happiest when they blend in with the crowd, are part of a group, or have a wide network of friends and family to draw upon. The tree sub-personality in a campfire drives them to become part of a larger group. Meanwhile, their flame-based personality inspires them to create new ways in which the group can interact and move forward. In their careers, campfires may not always be the first to be selected for promotion, but they are the ones who have managed to make friends with every other employee. They are the first to try and create options for their co-workers, and typically can be found leading safety meetings and union organizations. A campfire's creativity allows them to work around their co-workers' differences, and they make the workplace a happier experience. Those that do move up the corporate ladder rarely forget their co-workers, and often work towards incorporating their ideas into the company now that the campfire has the power to do so. Like other flame-based personalities, campfires prefer to work towards higher education degrees in the arts. However, campfires are more likely to move toward performance arts, where groups of people work together, instead of individual arts, where a lone person creates a work of art. Found in bands, typically as a background musician or singer, in plays or movies, usually as actors, campfire personalities prove they can create amazing works, but prefer to avoid the direct spotlight. Campfires have some of the most stable relationships of any of the personalities, save for those with tree-based personalities. Their desire to blend in with the community enforces strict dedication to their partners, while their creativity keeps the romance from dying out. Typically, a campfire's courting period is rather quick. The engagement is rushed to its completion so they can live a calm, creative life with their partners. If they lose their partners, campfires are usually quick to find a new one, not because they did not care about their previous partner, but because they do not like to stand out. Campfires enjoy group-based creative hobbies like art classes, music lessons, or acting coaching, to name a few. They also enjoy board games more than video games. Board games involve more interaction with others while still allowing creativity to flow. In particular, they enjoy games like charades, Pictionary, or Cranium, where they are able to use their creativity to have fun with others. Financially, campfires usually run down the middle of the road. While they enjoy selling their creative talents, they typically do not like to stand out as overly rich or overly poor. Because of this, they split their earnings between keeping themselves comfortable and increasing their ability to continue to create. This can mean buying paint or canvas, taking acting or music lessons, or party games. Saving enough to move on to higher levels of economy comes with a bit of apprehension, because they won't know for sure if their creative talents will be appreciated somewhere else. Campfires are very unlikely to move down a self-destructive path, however. Rather than turning to drugs or alcohol for inspiration, they prefer to study their community. The old man across the street who follows a set schedule, the young woman who walks her dog every day, the way the sun shines off the buildings in the neighborhood. These all provide more inspiration to a campfire than drugs or alcohol. Also, like all trees' subpersonality types, campfires are loath to move towards suicide, mostly because it would make them stand out in the crowd. The wildfire. Flame, wind. A wildfire in nature is a truly dangerous thing. A fire spreading out of control, destroying acres of land and property before it can be contained. Wildfires are extremely common during the fall. Started by lightning strikes, sparks, or even discarded cigarette butts, wildfires cause millions of dollars of damage every year, and their devastation is broadcast by the media for the entire world to see. Driven to create something by their flame-based personality, coupled with their need to change something by their wind sub-personality, a wildfire personality can indeed be a force to be reckoned with. Constantly on the move, constantly trying to create works of art, the wildfire always pushes the boundaries of what most people would consider normal. Careers offer too much stability for a wildfire. Instead, they drift from job to job, from location to location their entire lives. Some do not even bother settling down, and instead drift from town to town, making ends meet by selling the things they create in much the same way as an inferno. However, many wildfires find a surprising amount of comfort in becoming members of traveling performers. Whether this is a group of actors that are constantly on the move, or a circus where the wildfire can show the world what it is that makes them unique, is up to each individual. When it comes to their education, wildfires can be quite the conundrum because they can fall on either side of the spectrum. Some get as much education as they can so that they can see what has not been done before. The need to change the world can only be satisfied if they know what the world has already done. Other wildfires shun the time spent in an institution and choose to forge their own paths as soon as they can. For all of them, however, learning through experience is far more valuable than knowledge from a book. Many child actors who suddenly burn out after a decade of extremely successful careers are typically wildfires. Wildfires have no time for stereotypical relationships. Following the same path as everyone else is seen as monotonous and boring. Instead, the wildfire will fly from one relationship to the next, staying just long enough to ensure that they have changed their partner's life in some way, good or bad. They will also often engage in relationships that break the norm. They will push for the rights of friends and strangers as well as for themselves, and will often engage in multiple partner relationships. More often than not, wildfires engage in protests and movements as a hobby rather than sit at home and create something. Lobbying for change, whether at a local or national level, inspires them to new heights of creativity. Wildfires, more than anyone else, campaign the hardest and create new ways to promote change to meet their own visions of how the world should be. When they play games, they focus on ones where they can not only outshine their opponents, but also inspire them to do greater things. When it comes to money, wildfires burn through their spare cash quickly and recklessly. Seeing a wildfire savings account is a rare experience, and seeing one that has a large sum of money is even rarer. What they cannot spend on their own creativity, they donate to institutions that promote changes in the way people think and act. They are the first to donate to causes and the last one to give up on them. Unlike other flame-based personalities, wildfires are very unlikely to move towards self-destructive activities. Getting high or drunk would not allow them to think clearly enough to create works of change. They are even less likely to move towards suicide, although they will be the first to defend someone who tries it. If they are dead, they cannot change anything. However, if a wildfire is stifled for too long, kept in one place, or is not allowed, for one reason or another, to use their creativity or promote change, they can wilt quickly. A wildfire needs to be able to expand, to grow, to move, or it dies on its own. As a result, wildfires can become prone to deep depression when stuck in one place, mentally or physically, too long. Fourth type, the tree. Base personality, the tree. Found on nearly every piece of land on the globe, trees provide a vital role in the survival of mankind. Taking in carbon dioxide and releasing pure oxygen, life as we know it could not survive without trees. And yet, trees often fade into the background of the scenery when clumped together. Rarely does the eye notice any discernible differences from one tree to the next. One of the most important pieces of life, trees become nothing more than a side note to our lives. People who have a tree-based personality, like their natural counterpart, work best when grouped together. A single tree, while often beautiful, could not provide enough oxygen to support a single person. But grouped together, trees support nearly all life on Earth by themselves. In the same way, tree personalities need other people in order to truly thrive. This, more than anything else, is the reason why the trees-based personality trait is conformity. In certain cultures, America in particular, the word conformity leaves a sour taste in the mouth. It has become synonymous with oppression and the destruction of the self. However, this is not necessarily true. It also means promoting the rights of others so that all people have an equal say. It means banding together behind a common cause. If not for conformity, nations like the United States would never have been born. Had 56 men not gathered together and put aside their personal differences, had not conformed to sign the Declaration of Independence, the United States would have never come into being. While conformity can, of course, mean a sacrifice of the self, it can also mean a promotion of the better good. Tree-based personalities make up a majority of the careers that support the backbone of the nation. Factory workers, retail employees, manufacturers, none of the modern conveniences of the modern world would be available if there were not thousands of individuals willing to group together to finish a project. While trees do not typically advance very far up the corporate ladder, without them, just like without real trees, we would not be here. In their education, trees follow traditional paths. Most attend college to receive business or accounting degrees. Many go on to nursing school or become teachers. Their desire is to find occupations that allow them to blend into the background and shape the world, to promote both physical and mental health and equality. Trees have the most stable relationships of any personality type. They grow stronger and more confident when they have people around them to nurture and support them, and who they can nurture and support. Often, trees have large families and regularly hold family reunions to maintain a strong relationship with the other members of their families. They also nurture strong relationships with their neighbors, setting up community outreach programs and homeowners associations. Their desire is to spread the comfort of their conformity to everyone in their community. When it comes to hobbies, trees prefer activities that involve large groups. While this can include attending concerts, plays, or movies, it also applies to large game nights where they invite as many friends as possible to engage in board or video games. They flourish as hosts and enjoy catering to the needs of their friends and family. Financially, trees are often very well off. They tend to save money rather than spend it, and their bank accounts usually reflect this. While their careers often do not pay well, trees are the first to find ways to scrimp and save for retirement. However, their financial wealth will vary on where they live. If their community is poor, they will often appear poor as well. The same is true if they live in a rich neighborhood. They will try to match the lifestyle of their neighbors and will spend accordingly. Almost never will a tree personality openly move towards self-destructive habits. Doing so would make them stand out in the crowd, drawing attention to themselves and their families. However, if their community is rife with drugs and alcohol, they will likely head down that path as well. Their need to blend in with the community is just as likely to make them match the community as make the community match them. The cypress, tree, river. Growing out of decomposing limestone blocks and swamps, cypress trees spend a majority of their life underwater. The deeper underwater their roots are, the larger the tree becomes. Bald cypress trees are common in more tropical environments and make up a large portion of Florida swampland. Cypress personalities are driven by their tree-based need to conform to the world around them, and their river subpersonality determination to follow their own paths. While this sounds contradictory, cypress personalities are the most likely to push to make their communities conform to them, rather than the other way around. They will set up homeowners associations that try and bind the community to a common set of rules, and will establish ways of making sure everyone in the community has the same opportunities as everyone else. In their careers, cypress personalities prefer jobs in which they have a specific goal to finish. Whether this means conducting a research problem with a group or working on a factory line in which a finished project is completed on their watch is up to each individual. They also make some of the best managers. Their determination to finish a project, backed by their desire to make sure everyone works together to complete it, ensures that they take the time to get to know each of their coworkers. Like most tree-based personalities, cypresses pursue higher education with the goal of getting a career that allows them to fit in with their community. They make excellent teachers and nurses, but are not as good in the long run at business. In the first two careers, cypress personalities are free to push for conformity. They are determined to have all their students pass or their patients live. In business, however, treating all employees as equals can lead to the destabilization of the company. Cypress relationships are often very stable, even if their partner doesn't want it to be. Determined to make their relationships work, the cypress will often stay with a partner just for the sake of having a partner. Even when things are not going well at home, the cypress will present a happy face to the community and will do everything they can to resolve any issues they have with their partner. Often, if they lose their partners, they will spend a great deal of time trying to get them back. Not just because they don't like things to be different, but also because they are determined to make it work. Cypress personalities get the most enjoyment out of hobbies that have a clear goal and that somehow contribute to the community. One might enjoy sewing quilts that they give to the homeless, while another may set up a weekly basketball game with the local youth. In the first case, the goal is to help the homeless conform to the standards of society by helping give them a hand up. In the second case, holding weekly tournaments can help bind the community closer together. A cypress is incapable, however, of pursuing hobbies that do not have a clear goal. While painting may be relaxing, it won't help to tie the community together. The movie coming out next week might have good reviews, but unless it is likely to come up in a conversation, there is no reason to go see it. Financially, cypress personalities strive to reach a certain community goal. If the community is trying to build a park, a cypress can be pivotal in pushing people to donate, and will often spend their own money to do so. If, however, the cypress is generally poorer than their neighbors, they will save as much money as they can in order to have an equal footing. Either way, the cypress must have a particular end game in mind, as their river subpersonality demands. Unless it is the common theme of their community, a cypress, like other tree-based personalities, is unlikely to head down a self-destructive path. Drugs and alcohol would only get in the way of them finishing a goal, and suicide would end their path completely. Again, however, if drug and alcohol abuse are the norm for their community, a cypress will be hard-pressed to fight against it. While some will strive to bring the community up to their own standards, many will fall into the vices of their community just to establish equilibrium. The oak, tree, rock. One of the densest woods in the world, oak trees have been used for thousands of years for everything from Viking warships to home construction to furniture. Oak trees are versatile and tough. Unlike many other trees, oaks can take up to 20 or more years to reach their full height, growing as slowly as 1 foot a year. However, by the time they are fully grown, they are among the toughest of the tree family, capable of withstanding even the toughest of storms. Like their namesakes, oak personalities take a long time to finish growing. Their tree-based personality pushes them towards a community, but their rock sub-personality forces them to consider exactly which community they belong to for far longer than most. But once they commit to a community, almost nothing can shake their loyalty. In their careers, oaks are slow to settle. Instead, they move from job to job early in life as they consider the best work environment to suit them. Once they find that career, they stick with it for the rest of their lives. However, they rarely move up the corporate ladder. Their initial community is often at the lowest levels of employment, which keeps them from moving on. If they do move up into management, it is usually because of a shift in the corporation that allows a large number of the oak's co-workers to advance at the same time, thus keeping their chosen community whole. Typically, an oak enters into higher education at a later point in their lives. They see the act of taking courses or obtaining a degree early in life does not allow them enough time to fully consider the path their lives should take. Once they do enter college, however, they tend to rush through their schooling. Having determined what they want to do, they waste no time in doing it. In most cases, an oak follows education paths towards areas where they can think of ways to help their community. Think tanks are not unheard of for oaks, as it allows them a lot of deep thought while interacting with a group of peers. Newspaper reporters are also typically oaks. Once they find a story they want to follow, they set out on the path towards getting their story. Other areas oaks study include teaching, history, and sociology. An oak's personal relationships follow the same pattern. It takes them time to settle on a single partner, but once they do, they remain firmly committed to that person. Their tree-based personality, however, which drives them to conform to their community, usually keeps them in good standing with partners who, for one reason or another, are not their final choice. One of the worst things that can happen to an oak is to have their partner leave them. Because they considered who they wish to be with for so long, they remain deeply rooted to that partner. They have a very difficult time moving on, and if the partner dies, an oak will rarely search for another one, choosing to live the rest of their lives alone. When it comes to hobbies, an oak, like any rock personality, prefers games that involve a great deal of strategy. However, the tree portion of their personalities drives them towards group activities. Games that combine both, such as Monopoly, Risk, or tabletop role-playing games, are preferred, as are sports games that involve a large amount of cooperation. While an oak would be perfectly content to pick up any book to read, they lean towards only reading in book clubs that allow them to feel connected to a community while they read. Financially, oaks often run the middle ground. While they have very few expenses, typically, their jobs rarely come with high pay. As a result, an oak is rarely in debt, but also just as rarely are they rich. The difference tends to lie on who their partner is. A partner with a low income pushes an oak towards the poverty line, while a partner with a high income gives the oak enough leeway to save money in the long run. Oaks are the least likely of the tree-based personalities to head down a self-destructive path. There are few issues that can drive an oak to even consider turning to drugs or alcohol, and only the most severe depressions can get them to consider suicide. For them, there are not enough benefits to the first two, and no benefits at all to the third, to contemplate any of them for long. The redwood, tree flame. The redwood is among the oldest of the trees on Earth. Having first developed during the Jurassic period, redwoods have survived for millions of years with surprisingly little variation, despite widely varying environments. Of all current plant species, redwoods are the largest, grow to be the tallest, and can live for thousands of years. Unique to only a few plant species, new redwoods can only begin to grow after their seeds have been touched by fire. Like their counterparts, people with the redwood personality often outshine their peers. While, as a tree-based personality, redwoods desire and even need a community in which to thrive, they still manage to stand out in the crowd, helping to lead their community in interesting and creative ways. In their careers, redwoods are the most likely of the tree-based personalities to move up the corporate ladder. While they have very strong bonds with their coworkers, a redwood tends to stand out as the most motivated or the best qualified to lead. Their flame sub-personality allows them to creatively solve problems, which usually benefits everyone. In addition, once they do start to move up into management positions, they maintain a healthy commitment to never forgetting the community they came from. As a result, they tend to be managers who truly listen to the average coworker and strive to maintain harmony in the workplace. Like most flame personalities, redwoods tend to have artistic educational goals. More often than not, this is pursued through the performing arts. Redwoods, while working with the rest of the cast, tend to receive the starring roles, where they can shine through their leadership of the chosen community. While it is uncommon, college-bound redwoods can also be found in team sports, where they play positions such as quarterbacks and pitchers, where they can lead their teams to victory. Redwoods shine in their relationships as well. Their creativity helps keep their relationships feeling new and fresh, while they constantly push their partner to be the very best they can be. However, if their partners are unreceptive to the redwood's drive, the redwood can grow distant and uninterested, leading to separations. Just as they wish to motivate others, redwoods require an equal amount of affirmation from their partners. Should they lose their partner, they tend not to pine after them. Instead, they will move on to a new partner, which instills some hard feelings on their previous partner. Redwoods enjoy hobbies that involve group activities that they can lead. Many choose to become camp counselors or organize scout packs. Others enjoy leading their homeowners associations. In games, they prefer to be the center of attention and enjoy the creativity offered by leading tabletop role-playing games. In sports, they tend to be the team captains, leading their teammates on the field. They quickly bore, however, during individualized games and sports in which they cannot lead and show their creativity. Financially, a redwood often has trouble saving money. Because they like to lead others, they often spend their extra cash on other people to earn their trust and respect, or on their community building activities. Compounding this is their desire to keep up appearances in their community. They wish to appear well off even if they aren't. Although they often cannot afford to be generous, redwoods typically find that not helping is even worse for their self-esteem than helping is to their wallet. While for the most part, redwoods are among the least likely to indulge in drugs or alcohol while alone, they are some of the most likely to do so in social settings. Their need to be liked drives them to do whatever their group is doing, and to do it better. By themselves, however, redwoods rarely turn to such activities. Not because they are not interested, but because there is no one around to entertain. When it comes to suicide, redwoods are very unlikely to pursue it. The only thing that can drive a redwood down a path to suicide is being ostracized from their community. If they are left alone for too long, their thoughts, and more importantly, their self-esteem, can both turn dark. The pine. Tree. One of the most abundant trees on Earth, and the most abundant in the northern hemisphere of the globe, pine trees are an evergreen known for their tiny green needles. Pines are sturdy, fast-growing, and are used for timber all over the world. However, finding a pine tree all by itself is fairly uncommon. More often than not, the green branches of the pine trees intertwine in the mind's eye, making it difficult to see the trees for the forest. People with a pine personality make up a far larger portion of the population than most people think. They are the fans in the stadiums, the crowd at the theater, and the groups at political rallies. They have extremely strong ties to their community and are at their best and their worst when gathered together. Most people, however, do not like to consider that they are a pine. This is because pine personalities tend to operate as a group rather than as individuals. This lack of individuality is great for a community or a country, but makes people feel as if they don't matter in an individualized society. When it comes to careers, pines generally make up a large portion of the working class in areas that require group or community activity. Factory workers that rely on each other to get the job done, waitresses who know every customer by name and order, and construction crews who work as a coherent whole all have a strong likelihood to have Pine personalities. While Pines rarely move up the corporate ladder, they are typically very content with their work and enjoy the time available to keep up to date with the activities of their community. For their education, people with a Pine personality tend to avoid college unless a large number of their friends or family are going at the same time. When they do go, however, they lean towards degrees that allow them access to the community. Nursing, education, and business degrees are the most common. In general, a Pine will have average grades, not because they are not capable of doing better, but because it is far more important for them to develop personal attachments to other students and increase the size of their community. In their relationships, Pines tend to form lasting ties to their partners. They are, at best, reluctant to lose a partner once they find the right one. Not only will doing so take away a vital part of their community, but it will also make them stand out. It is far more likely to find a Pine in a long-term relationship that has lost its luster than to find one willing to go through the process of divorce. In addition, Pines who do lose their partners often have a hard time letting them go. Although their relationships eventually lose their spark, Pines are deeply devoted to their partners and hate the idea of being alone. A Pine's hobbies are almost always centered around group activities. Most are fans of professional sports and collect memorabilia or attend sporting functions. Others are fans of the arts and fill the seats of plays and movies. Some, if it is something their community is interested in, devote their time to political rallies and protests. Either way, a Pine is very devoted to their hobby. It is something that ties them to their community, and that tie gives them a much stronger appreciation of the hobby. Because their careers often have no room for advancement, a Pine is typically on the lower end of the financial food chain. Although this sometimes means late or missed payments on their bills, a Pine usually does not care as long as they still maintain contact with the people in their community. For them, having friends and family is far more important than material wealth. However, some Pines, ones who live in richer neighborhoods, will have job opportunities opened for them that allow for a much better style of life. Despite having dual tree-based personalities, which drives them to conform to their community and keep their heads down, a Pine is the most susceptible of all tree personalities to head down a self-destructive path. Becoming involved with the wrong community can lead them down a dark path of drugs and alcohol, while they may continue even after leaving that community. In addition, a general lack of feeling like an individual can lead many Pines to wondering if anyone would notice if they were gone. This contemplative action has the tendency to lead many Pines into considering, if not attempting, suicide. The Weeping Willow, Tree Wind. Known for its long, light leaves that reach toward the ground and billow in the breeze, the weeping willow is a graceful sight in any park or backyard. Weeping willows mature quickly, can grow as much as 2 feet per year, and are among the first plants to begin to bloom after winter, sometimes as early as February. Originating in China, the weeping willow has, over the course of the last millennia, been cultivated across the globe in a multitude of environments. Like all people with a tree-based personality, weeping willows are at their best when involved in a community. However, unlike their personality cousins, weeping willows are very adaptable to change. While this can mean there is some instability in their lives, weeping willows have an easy time finding new places to live, new people to incorporate into their community, and in changing their career, education, or partners. While they never seek out these changes, they simply have an easier time adapting to them, at least when compared to other tree personalities. In their careers, weeping willows prefer a job that does not have a permanent, monotonous tone. Rarely will one be found on the factory floor, or in a fast food chain that simply sells copies of the same item over and over. Although restaurants, especially ones with rotating menus, are perfectly acceptable. What they do need, however, is a workplace with strong ties to their coworkers. Individualized workplaces leave them cut off from their community and can make them wilt. While they will not generally seek to move up the corporate ladder on their own, weeping willows adapt readily to management. When it comes to their education, weeping willows tend to lean towards multidisciplinary degrees. Usually these degrees involve science, nursing, and education, areas that are sure to involve changing workplaces with the introduction of new information. They shy away from history, philosophy, and law, however, due to their static natures. In general, weeping willows enjoy college far more than other tree-based personalities. The melting pot of college students gives the weeping willow access to a far larger range of groups and interests, which can greatly expand their personal community. Weeping willows tend to have 3 or 4 meaningful partners in their lifetime. While they hate to lose any one of them, they readily adapt to the loss and are relatively quick to find a new partner. With a very wide social community, weeping willows rarely have no one to choose from. In addition, they often maintain open and friendly relationships with lost partners, as well as those partners' friends and family. A breakup is no excuse to cut off a piece of their community. A weeping willow's hobbies are often quite varied. Although they remain deeply dedicated to their hobbies while they are enjoying them, a weeping willow has no trouble dropping one hobby for another as they shift from one part of their community to another. Because they almost never throw anything out that might be of use later, it is not unusual to find a weeping willow's garage or storage unit filled with memorabilia from a wide range of hobbies. Sporting equipment will lay next to board games that are stacked on top of scenery from the play they helped out on once. Financially, weeping willows tend to be better off than most tree-based personalities. Their wide-ranging community offers them a much better chance of finding higher-paying jobs. Combined with the fact that they almost never throw anything away, a weeping willow can usually enjoy a financially comfortable mid to late life. Early on, however, they are quite often poor as they build up their stockpile of hobby supplies. A weeping willow almost never heads down a self-destructive path. While they will be more than happy to enjoy a party or a few drinks, they will very rarely become consumed by drugs or alcohol, nor will they consider suicide. Either of these actions would cut them off from their community, which would be far more hurtful than any perceived benefits of drug or alcohol. Also, because their communities are often so very large, it is almost completely impossible to cut a weeping willow out of their community, which drastically lowers the chances of suicidal actions. Base number 5, the wind. Base personality, the wind. Moving from places with high pressure to places with low pressure based on temperature, elevation, and weather patterns, wind has been a stable, yet often unpredictable force of nature since the moment the planet began spinning. Throughout history, people have capitalized on the power of wind, using it for pleasure, flying kites, for production, when using windmills to grind produce, and for utility, in generating pollution-free electricity. In addition, the wind has filled countless sails of explorers and has helped mankind search every corner of the globe. Whether it is a gentle breeze on a hot day or a massive tornado running amok, the wind is both appreciated and feared in equal measures. But because of its untold versatility, people who have a base personality of wind are marked by the trait of change. Changing attitudes, changing beliefs, and changing communities. In their careers, wind-based personalities have a hard time settling down. In general, they prefer occupations that are not static, ones where the duties and people are constantly rotating. Careers that involve monotonous work or that involve the same people day in and day out leave a wind feeling stifled. As a result, a wind usually has many different jobs in their lifetime in a variety of fields. They are jacks of all trades, but masters of none. While many find a higher education to be too regulated to attend, those who do enter college lean towards multidisciplinary or general education degrees. Sticking to a single discipline involves too much single-mindedness, and many who attempt it often fail to complete it. Quite a few tend to end up with degrees in the arts, where the fluid community complements their attitude. In their relationships, wind-based personalities have a very difficult time settling down with a single partner. Absolute commitment to one person is an anathema to most winds, and they instead tend to have either multiple partners at once or simply go through far more partners in their lifetime than the other base personalities. In addition, their need to keep change in their life often means that they drop contact with former partners, moving on quickly to a new one. A wind typically has many different hobbies throughout their lives. Usually, they will pick up a hobby only as long as it interests them, and then they will quickly forget about it. Rather than keep mementos from their hobbies, a wind is more likely to throw out or sell anything they aren't working on at that moment. It is by no means unusual for their homes to be filled with half-completed projects that are too large or too unusual to simply throw out. They enjoy games of chance, and it is quite normal to find a wind with a slight gambling addiction. Financially, wind-based personalities are often living from paycheck to paycheck, due in part to their ever-changing careers and in part because of their continually shifting hobbies. Winds rarely have the funds or the foresight to save money. They are, however, very generous with whatever they do have. They are happy to help their community fund new projects or to bail their friends out of financial troubles of their own, even if it's at their own expense. On the bright side, however, a wind almost never cares about how little money they have. In fact, they rarely think about money at all. When it comes to self-destructive habits, winds are among the most susceptible. Due to their mind-altering effects, both drugs and alcohol are seen as avenues towards change, even if that change is down a bad path. Winds are the most likely to start a party or an excursion or an impulsive road trip with no destination and plenty of danger. While a wind that is free will rarely think about suicide, one that is stifled for too long will come to believe that it is the only avenue left for them towards change. While they may not think on it often, winds are constantly in danger of dying from doing something dangerous or reckless that they haven't thought through. The mist. Wind River. Composed of small droplets of water that are suspended in the air, mist can form as a result of sea spray, fog, or even arguably from high levels of humidity. Many plants, especially those in humid areas, gather their water intake from mist rather than through the ground, and it acts as a moisturizing element for many various forms of life. People with a mist personality are characterized as pursuing change with a determined purpose. Their river sub-personality gives them the drive to create change, while their wind-based personality gives them the need to create it. Although they can be slow to form, a mist has the capacity to permeate even the most solid of institutions. Because mist personalities are determined to create some form of change, they are among the most likely of all wind-based personalities to keep a single career for a long period of time. They tend to have a better chance of creating change in their career from within, and are also most likely of the wind-based personalities to move up the corporate ladder. From these positions, a mist can use their determination to push for change within the company, even if it is only something as simple as hiring new or more employees to get the job done. Like most wind-based personality, mists have a difficult time forcing themselves to pursue a higher education. However, those that do choose to attend one have one of the higher graduation rates of the winds. Their determination to finish a task continually pushes them toward a degree. And as long as they are there, mists tend to try and effect some sort of change on the college, usually through student governments or protests. When it comes to relationships, mist personalities are among the most likely of the wind-based personalities to maintain a long-term relationship. Instead of allowing their wind-based need to change to move them from one relationship to the next, they rely on their river-based determination to remain committed to a single partner and use their drive for change to keep that relationship interesting. As a result, mists often enjoy long, happy relationships with their partners. However, like most winds, if a mist loses its partner, they will often not try to win them back. Instead, they will move on to a new partner and will once again use their determination to try to ensure that the new relationship outlasts the last. For the most part, mist personalities tend to avoid traditional hobbies such as games, collections, or fandom. Instead, they use their determination to create change to drive their extracurricular activities towards some sort of goal. Protesters devoted to their cause, such as people who chain themselves to trees or block off a road with just their bodies, are often mists. However, mists are typically peaceful protesters. Getting thrown in jail or worse, killed, will not allow them to continue to push for their goals. Financially, mists are often fairly poor. While they do often have higher paying jobs than other wind-based personalities, they have a tendency to spend or donate most of their excess cash on supplies to pursue their hobby, or to a charity that will do it for them. However, they are among the best of the winds at saving for a particular goal. If, for instance, they need a certain amount of money to help a cause, they will have little to no trouble accumulating that amount, but only for that purpose. If their partners can convince them to save for retirement, a mist has a good shot at having peaceful golden years. While the wind-based need for change can often take the winds towards a self-destructive path, the mists have an easier time avoiding it. Drugs and alcohol would only inhibit their ability to promote change, and suicide would stop it completely. However, if a mist is somehow kept from acting on their driving urge to change, they can begin to settle into a deep depression and may turn to self-destructive pursuits in order to feel like they are still capable of changing something. The sandstorm. Wind, rock. A sandstorm, also sometimes known as a dust storm, is a large wind front that picks up and suspends in the air loose particles of soil or sand and moves them to another location. In the American Midwest, dust storms drove homeowners to madness as they blew dirt and dust into even the most meticulously cleaned homes. In North Africa, sandstorms have even been known to bury entire cities under the surface of the Sahara, leaving nothing behind but memories. People with a sandstorm personality are, like all wind-based personalities, driven by the basic desire to create some form of change on the world around them. However, unlike the other winds, sandstorms take a lot longer to decide exactly how to do so. Their rock sub-personality dictates deep consideration of the change, which often results in a longer-lasting influence. However, once they have decided on a path, very little can stand in the way of a sandstorm committed to their cause. Typically, sandstorms settle on a career earlier than most wind-based personalities. Despite their rock sub-personality, as well as their desire to consider their actions before moving forward, they do not take too long to find a work environment that they are comfortable in. Once they settle on a career, a sandstorm will spend a great deal of time considering exactly how they want to change their workplace in order to make it better. When they eventually do have a plan in mind, they will suddenly shoot up the corporate ladder in order to reach a position that will allow them to implement that change. After that, they will settle back down as they seek out a new area of improvement for the company. When it comes to higher education, sandstorms are slow to choose to attend college. While they enjoy the idea of a higher education, they first must decide what kind of education would allow them to create a certain kind of change. Typically, they go for a degree in business or education, places where they can use their drive for change at its highest influence. Once they make the decision to enter into college, they rush through it quickly, taking far more classes at once than most other personalities. When they know what their goal is, they do not hesitate to achieve it. Sandstorms often seek out romantic partners that are broken in some way and spend nearly the entire relationship trying to fix their partner. In this way, they are both able to work on an issue and enforce change. However, after they have managed to change or fix whatever the problem was with their partner, they will begin to search for a new partner. While this is often mistaken as a lack of caring on the sandstorm's part, this is not the case. Once there is nothing more for the sandstorm to fix, they are driven by the need to find someone else who does need fixing. As far as hobbies are concerned, sandstorms prefer mental games that have a great deal of variation. Games or hobbies that are relatively monotonous quickly begin to bore a sandstorm, and they will only participate if they are forced to. It is not unusual to see sandstorms participating in tabletop role-playing games that allow the sandstorm to consider a long-term strategy that they can unleash all at once. They are also likely to participate in political movements, as long as the movements line up with an issue that the sandstorm wishes to change. Financially, sandstorms are usually fairly well off. Because they have the tendency to move up the corporate ladder, and because they take their time about making big decisions, sandstorms have an easier time saving money. This is especially true when they are compared to the other wind-based personalities. They are, however, unlikely to ever own a house. The prospect of being held down by a single location is an anathema to even a rock sub-personality sandstorm. Sandstorms are unlikely to head down a self-destructive path. Because all big decisions require a great deal of consideration for a sandstorm, they very rarely end up turning to drugs or alcohol. Also, due to their nature of having long periods of inactivity before a burst of change, sandstorms almost never truly get depressed. They are used to not being able to create change until the time is right, so they do not easily get upset about not being able to constantly create change. Ultimately, they are the least likely of the winds to consider suicide as a final act of change. The Firenado. Wind, flame. A firenado, more commonly known as a fire whirl or fire tornado, is extremely rare in nature. Essentially, they consist of a cone of fire that is surrounded by invisible winds. When the organic plant matter beneath them is burned in the up to 2,000 degree heat, carbon gases are released into the air that ignite when they reach the oxygen at the top of the cone. Firenadoes are capable of flinging burning ash hundreds of feet through the air, starting more fires, and cannot be put out through artificial means. Like their namesakes, people with a firenado personality burn hot, create a great deal of change, cannot be extinguished by outside forces, and burn themselves out fairly quickly. Their wind-based need for change, combined with their flame sub-personality-based drive for creativity, makes a firenado a powerful force. However, once their creative juices have been spent, a firenado collapses in on themselves, leaving a hollow shell. Firenadoes rarely enter into a traditional career, opting instead to push for change in creative arts as soon as possible. Many become musicians, actors, or artists that forever alter the landscape of their field. Some, however, while still enforcing a push for change, do enter into scientific or even religious careers, where their passions can burn brightly. These individuals often come up with new or innovative methods of discovery. Just as rare as a firenado on a path towards higher education. Quite often they simply seem to be born with the talents they need to enter into their field, and do not need to earn a degree in it. Musicians that can play an instrument almost before they can talk, artists who fine-tune their talent through non-stop work, or actors whose character interpretations cannot be taught in a classroom are classic examples of firenado personalities. Those that do enter into higher education typically strive for degrees in science, technology, or seminary fields, places where their creativity can create the most change on the public. A typical firenado has multiple short or one-night relationships over the entire course of their lives. This is not because they do not care about their partners, but is rather due to the fact that their passions burn hot, deep, and most importantly, fast. While their relationships are always exciting and creative, a firenado's drive for change keeps them constantly bouncing from one partner to the next, hoping each time that they will somehow alter their partner's life for the better in one way or another. Due to the all-consuming drive to nurture their creative passion, a firenado rarely has time for hobbies that do not relate to their area of expertise. A musician, for instance, will fill their home with instruments, musical scores, and recordings of their favorite artists to learn from. Any time not spent pushing to change their field with something they've created is considered a waste, and they will forego nearly any contact with people that cannot help them achieve this goal. While this makes them appear antisocial, it also makes them highly desirable guests for people who believe the firenado's creativity might somehow brush off onto them. Nearly everyone wants to say they knew, hung out with, partied with, or even slept with a firenado who was destined for greatness. Financially, a firenado is either completely poor as a struggling artist or unbelievably rich as someone who has found their niche in their passion and has become famous. In either case, whatever spare resources the firenado has at their disposal typically goes into furthering their artistry. Whether that means supplies, meetings with others in their field, or traveling to places of inspiration, a firenado will do whatever it takes to further their craft. For one who has not yet hit it big, this can mean spending at the cost of their own health, passing up on food or medicine in exchange for a new piece of equipment. Firenadoes are prone to self-destructive acts. Those who are struggling financially are the most likely to consider suicide. Unable to create the change that they are working towards, they fall into deep depressions that leave them vulnerable to suicidal thoughts. Those who have been discovered often find themselves falling into rituals of drug and alcohol abuse that can either destroy their careers or lead to an accidental overdose. The Zephyr, wind tree. In nature, a zephyr is a light wind or gentle breeze that typically blows west to east. Traditionally, a zephyr has been seen as a portent that spring is coming, as it offers a bit of warmth in the air. On a summer day, a zephyr helps keep people cool, while outside as it gently brushes through the trees. In addition, the gentleness of the wind safely transports small seeds and pollen so that new life can form. People with a Zephyr personality are tied to their communities by their tree's sub-personality. However, their wind-based personality pushes them to create some form of change within that community. Like their wind namesake, Zephyrs gently blow against their community, helping to shape it and make it grow. In their careers, Zephyrs rarely move up the corporate ladder. Their place is with the community they started with, and they prefer to be paid less as long as they can continue to guide their friends and family. Quite often, Zephyrs become educators or nurses, careers with little upward movement possibilities, but where they can help to heal and shape their community. Places with high levels of anxiety and strain are difficult for a Zephyr, such as corporate business, law, or law enforcement. While each of these careers could also help in leading the community, they are too high in profile and too high stressed for a Zephyr. When it comes to education, a Zephyr is the most likely of all winds to enter college. The ability to remain with old or make new friends gives them an initial tie to the college path. Typically, they will then head towards degrees that offer both an enlarged community and a chance to create change. While education degrees are the most common, particularly in elementary education, some Zephyrs pursue degrees in nursing, drama, or even sociology. Anything that has a large community or that involves helping to change a large number of people. A Zephyr usually has very laid-back relationships. Despite a desire to create change, they do not tend to move from one partner to another. Instead, they keep their relationships simple and work towards changing their partner into something better than they were before they met. Because Zephyrs are so tied to their communities, they often have a lot of support if they lose a partner. Although they do not have an easy time getting a new partner, they often adapt to them easily. More often than not, the Zephyr's hobbies are geared towards community gatherings. Block parties, where the neighborhood can get together into a single place where the Zephyr can gossip and spread ideas, are quite common. Always the host or hostess, book clubs are also another good place to find a Zephyr, where they lead the gatherings and push their interpretations onto their friends in order to create a change in their minds. They can also be found at PTA meetings, homeowners association gatherings, or anywhere else where they can help guide and nourish their chosen community. Financially, Zephyrs tend towards middle class. While they rarely end up rich, especially considering their chosen career paths, they almost never end up poor either. When they do fall on hard times, their community typically bands together to help the Zephyr out of their financial straits. With the money they do have, Zephyrs put a little bit away with every paycheck and use the rest to help fund community projects. Often they will work with scout troops to help raise money, and they will always spare $1 or $2 for a school child selling candy bars for a fundraiser. Of all the different personalities, Zephyrs are among the least likely to head down a path of self-destruction. Drugs or alcohol would not only inhibit their ability to help guide the community, they would also ruin the Zephyr's reputation. They heavily disapprove of suicide, and unless they are somehow shunned from their entire community, which is often quite large, thoughts of committing it never enter their minds. Dying would keep them from helping, and not being able to help would be worse than death. The tornado. Wind. Described as a spinning column of air whose bottom touches the surface of the earth and whose top is connected to a large storm cloud, tornadoes are wildly destructive forces. While there have been recorded sightings of tornadoes on every continent except Antarctica, they are most commonly found in the American Midwest. With wind speeds reaching as high as 300 miles per hour and bases that can reach up to 2 miles in diameter, tornadoes have the potential to be among the most powerful destructive forces on the planet. People with a tornado personality are chaos personified, creating change simply for the sake of change. Like their namesakes, tornadoes have the potential to create a great deal of devastation in their wake, and notice it about as much as a real tornado notices a trailer park. Once they get started, practically nothing can stand in their way, and people around them are wise to duck for cover. In their careers, tornadoes enjoy stirring up trouble. Typically, they have entry-level positions, and due to their nature, they rarely have the state of mind required for movement up the corporate ladder. However, while they are at the job, tornadoes tend to skip around regulations, finding shortcuts at every opportunity, spread gossip every chance they get, and quit just before they have caused enough trouble to get fired. As a result, they bounce around from one job and often one town to the next. As a general rule, tornadoes do not have the capacity to enter into higher education. While they are quite often more than intelligent enough to earn a degree, they find the structure of college to be too rigid for their liking. When they do go, or when they are forced to go, they tend to look for party colleges, where they can stir up the most trouble and therefore have the most fun. Rarely, if ever, do they attend or pay attention to their classes. Usually this results in the school kicking them out for bad grades within a year or two, or for playing a prank that went a step too far. Champions of the one-night stand, tornadoes almost never enter into a long-term relationship. As with all other aspects of their lives, tornadoes find commitment to be too restraining and confining. Those partners that do try to hold a tornado in place for any extended period of time typically end up getting hurt. Despite that, tornadoes are often very charming and have very little trouble finding partners who are willing to attempt to fix them. In fact, most tornadoes are more than happy to exploit. Due to their almost nomadic lifestyle, tornadoes rarely engage in anything most people would consider a hobby. They do not collect things or participate in activities that require repeating participation. What they do enjoy, however, are parties and practical jokes or pranks. A tornado is perfectly at home in the general chaos of a giant party, and, so long as it creates some form of recreation, they would be more than happy to ruin a stranger's day just to have a laugh. Financially, a tornado always has just enough to get by. Their general lack of material goods allows them to save up just enough money to pay for rent and utilities, while spending the lion's share on their next party. Despite the fact that they often have money, their credit scores are often terrible as they fail to make regular payments. Because of this, their homes, cars, and sometimes even their clothing is often out of date and in need of repair. Of all the personalities, a tornado is the most likely to head down a self-destructive path. In fact, it is almost unheard of to find a tornado that isn't on a self-destructive path. While they are usually having far too much fun to consider suicide, drugs and alcohol are an integral part of their everyday lives. Parties, fun, and mind-altering substances create a perfect sense of change for the tornado of all ages. Although finding a tornado that lives long enough to reach retirement age is just as rare as finding a sober one. Conclusion. Before closing out the book, I just wanted to point out a couple of things. First of all, thank you for taking the time to purchase and read this book. We at Crystal Phoenix Hobbies greatly appreciate your patronage. Second, I hope that by reading this you have managed to find yourself somewhere within these pages. Knowing who you are at heart can be an important step in learning how to communicate with your friends, family, and coworkers. Third, the personalities listed here are only ones that people have, not necessarily the ones that they show. It is entirely possible that someone can pretend to be one thing while actually being another. That is why the book is subtitled as Self-Diagnosed Personality. Only the one reading the pages can determine who they are, and it is up to them if they choose to tell others. Finally, I am fully aware that people are more complicated than they are shown in this book. Many, if not most people, have attributes from 3 or more base personalities. I, for instance, self-identify myself as an island, taking a long time to consider my actions and then pushing through to their completion with dogged determination. However, if I didn't have a touch of flame-based creativity in me, I would never have come up with this book. By adding even a third personality to each base, a sub-personality if you will, would have made this book 5 times longer. And while a 500-page book is nice to look at on the shelf, it is hardly something for the casual reader. In any case, I hope you enjoyed reading The River, the Rock, the Flame, the Tree, and the Wind. If so, please visit our website and take a look at some of our other books published by Crystal Phoenix Hobbies. I hope you enjoyed this Mining for Meaning session.